Hello, and thanks for joining me today. My name's Jeff, and you're listening to episode 21 of the Comic Book of the Day podcast. Hello, and welcome back to another edition of the Comic Book of the Day podcast. Today's comic book of the day is The Brave and the Bold, number 111. This was published by DC Comics in March of 1974. Yeah, this one is kind of an old one. This is a classic Jim Aparo cover. And, you know, this is one of those ones that I guess, you know, if we really have to be honest, you know, the cover is an A+, right? The cover is, you know, if you're a kid and you're going through that comic book spinner rack and you're looking for comics, you know, what in the world would be cooler than watching the Batman team up with his arch-nemesis, the Joker? Am I right? Huh? Am I right? So, I mean, if you're, you know, you're there at the drugstore, you're spinning that spinner rack, you're looking for a good buy for your 20 cents, right? You got a quarter in your pocket, you're looking for a comic book, and lo and behold, right there on the spinner rack is Batman teaming up with the Joker. You know, and the cover lays it all out, right? So the cover, if you're judging a book by its cover, then this is definitely Batman teaming up with the Joker, right? I mean, look at it. You've got Batman, you've got the cops who are standing there about ready to shoot the Joker, and then you've got Batman stopping the cops and saying, you know, stay back. Nobody lays a hand on my partner while I'm around. So right off the bat, you know, you're thinking to yourself, you know, there's my 20 cents, right? Like I'm forking it over because there's the Joker and the Batman teaming up. How in the world does this happen? What are the circumstances that lead to this? Well, unfortunately, the book inside, well, you know, not so much, right? I mean, of course, it's one of those classic sort of 1970s swerves. This was written by Bob Haney. The interiors are by Jim Aparo. And look, the interiors are gorgeous. I mean, you know, aside from perhaps Neil Adams or, I don't know, Tim Sale or Mazzucchelli, you know, there's a real short list of people who have really just nailed the Batman. I mean, people who, you know, who when you look at them, they are the quintessential Batman artists. I mean, you know, Kurt Swan pulled that off on Superman, right? I mean, you've got, I feel like Romita pulled it off with Spider-Man, and of course, you know, everybody would say McFarlane pulled it off with Spider-Man as well. But I mean, you know, certain people have the ability to be able to sort of like just capture the essence of a character, and I feel like Aparo is one of those. And I don't, you know, look, I probably haven't talked to a lot of people about art, so I don't think that I don't know if you would pronounce it Aparo or Aparo. I've always said Jim Aparo, but you know, he's one of my favorite. I actually own a piece of Jim's artwork for a Dead Man story, right? So I'm fortunate enough that, you know, I've been able to sort of get my hands on a piece of his original art. I've got a page from a Dead Man story that I've got hanging up in I guess my man cave, or maybe it's my nerd cave. I think it's probably my nerd cave. I mean, if you saw it, it's definitely not a man cave. It's probably more of a nerd cave. But I've got a nice framed piece of Jim Aparo's art hanging up that I was fortunate enough to get my hands on a while back. And I just love this guy. I mean, growing up, I think in the 70s and 80s, if you were reading Brave and the Bold, you know, you couldn't get away from it. This guy drew Batman and a different partner every month for years and years and years. I mean, this is Brave and the Bold 111, and I believe he was on the book until the end of the book, right? I mean, I believe he literally closed out the book and then moved over once the book ended. This book, Brave and the Bold, ended, and I believe it transitioned very quickly to Batman and the Outsiders. If I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, I think that's how the transition went. I think the Brave and the Bold series wrapped up and became Batman and the Outsiders, and of course, Jim Aparo continued to draw Batman and the Outsiders. But this story is written by Bob Haney, and and I think, look, you have a book where Batman is teaming up with a different person, a different superhero, villain, whatever the sort of like gimmick of the month is, right? And more often than not, it's Batman and Commandy or Wildcat or Green Lantern or Flash or Superman or Wonder Woman or Sergeant Rock, or the list goes on and on and on. But the point being that Batman had to team up with a different person every single month, and that how many different ways can you contrive a story to get people together? So this one was good on the surface, right? I mean, when you're looking at it and you're sitting there, like I said, sort of examining the book and judging the book by its cover, you think to yourself, God, I've got to plunk down my 20 cents on this book. This is definitely something, one for the ages. How often is the Batman going to team up with Joker? I mean, P.S. Just between me and you, he teamed up with Joker probably about 3 or 4 times. But this was probably one of the earlier team ups. I mean, this is 111, so he teamed up with him fairly early. I think this was probably one of the first or second times that Batman and the Joker teamed up. And this is, I don't know, there's just a bunch of there's a bunch of scenes in this book that are that are just sort of like classic 70s. I don't want to say corny, but borderline. I don't know. They're not really corny, but the story starts off that Batman and Gordon are investigating a murder of a family, and the entire family's murdered in cold blood. And it appears that the Joker, there's a Joker card on the at the murder scene, so it's implicating Joker right off the bat, and sort of like out of character fashion, Batman decides that that's it, that's the breaking point. Now he's going to hunt down and he's going to end Joker for good, right? Like that's it. Like he's pushed him too far. He's crossed the line, and this time the Batman's just going to take him out. This is going to be the end of the Joker. So Batman tries to hunt him down. It turns out that it appears that the Joker is being framed for this. There's some clues, right? So this is Detective Batman sort of going through the clues, and you get to follow along as he sort of like starts to realize that maybe the Joker didn't have anything to do with this. And then there's a scene where there's a confrontation in a steam room or a sauna, and the Batman winds up getting shot in the sauna. Or in the steam room, or what, however that is. But the next scene, of course, is Batman laying in a hospital bed with, no shirt on, because obviously, they've had to fix his wound or whatever that is. But there he is, no shirt in a hospital bed with a cowl on. So, I don't know. How do you, what are you going to do, right? I mean, you have to leave Batman's cowl on. You can't, Gordon can't learn his identity. And I guess at this point in the Batman mythos, Gordon and Batman have, such mutual respect or such mutual admiration for each other that, Gordon's not going to try to reveal his identity. And the story goes on, and eventually we find out that, the Joker truly is evil. But this is just, there's some really hilariously corny parts of this story. There's, in order to try to track down the Joker, Batman has to hire some graffiti artist, right? So Batman seeks out some Gotham City graffiti artists to go around the city and tag different buildings with a note to Joker, calling for a meeting and setting a location for a meeting. And of course, nobody else here's some spray painted instructions to meet Batman in a certain place at a certain time. And nobody else shows up. So I don't know. This is just a stretch. It's one of those contrived situations, like I said, where you have to figure out some way. And kudos to Bob Haney, I guess. Give the guy credit for at least coming up with something that I guess if you were 11 or 12 years old, it probably makes some sort of plausible sense. I'm sure if I were a younger kid, if I were 12 or 13 or 11 or whatever the age is, and I was reading this book at the time, I would probably, look back on this and think, how ingenious that Batman enlists the aid of graffiti artists, because those are truly the ones that know the street and know, where to put up a message where Joker will see it. So I don't know. The cover of this is fantastic. This is one of those books. I think this is, if I remember the way that I was probably first attracted to this book, it was definitely through a house ad for this, advertising this book in another book, right? I mean, I seem to recall seeing this cover advertised in a DC house ad in another book, and I think when you see it that way, your imagination runs wild. Or perhaps I think it might have been, I think if we were looking back, it was Brave and the Bold number 150, I think, that had Batman and a mystery partner, and Batman is the cover of the book is Batman. It's 150th anniversary celebration of Brave and Bold, and I think maybe it was Batman standing in front of a collage of what at the time were probably considered the greatest Brave and Bold issues of all time. And I believe that this was probably one of those ones that was on it. I'm sure this probably sold like gangbusters at the time, because how else are you gonna how else would you react if you were a kid and you saw Joker teaming up, or Batman teaming up with his arch-nemesis, right? His greatest foe at the time, which is the Joker. So, it is what it is. 20 cents. It'll definitely, like I said, suck your 20 cents right out of your pocket. Definitely worth it. So, yeah, give it a shot. Head over to comicbookoftheday.com and take a look at the cover and see what you think. The cover's really, it's a great cover. I mean, you got to admit, it's definitely an intriguing cover, and it'll pique your curiosity for sure. But head on over to comicbookoftheday.com, check it out. Appreciate you listening. You can follow along on iTunes. You can subscribe on iTunes and Google Play. You can follow us on Facebook at Comic Book of the Day, and we're on Twitter at CB of the Day. But sure, man, follow along, check it out, head over to comicbookoftheday.com, look at the cover, see what you think. Let me know if you like it, give it a thumbs up, if you will. And, thanks a lot for listening, and, we'll see you tomorrow.